I think it's going.
Not yet.
Looks good.
There we go. Awesome. Well, welcome everybody. Sorry for the confusion this morning, but we're going to go ahead and get things kicked off since we're running a few minutes behind here. We are very, very excited to be hosting this month Molly and Liz from Dynamics User Group, Doug, which most of you know and probably have seen them on Twitter. But today they're going to be talking about Dynamics User Group and just really honestly user groups in general, how to get involved, how to participate in local user groups. And then we're going to be talking about some life experiences and, you know, what some of us experienced in local user groups, which is pretty exciting. So excited to hear all about what's going on in Dynamics User Group, because honestly, some of the stuff I haven't heard. So for me, it's exciting as well. But before we get started, I did want to turn over the microphone to Mary, who has some, you know, exciting news of her career and her path that she's taking right now. So Mary, you want to give us an update on what's going on in your life recently?
Yes, thanks, Shannon. So as you'll notice in this slide, I've got a new updated email address, and I'll leave it a little bit kind of at that, kind of still teasing some things on. I'm going to have an official launch on March 1st. But what you should know now is that I'm really, really excited. I've taken my passion and my dreams that have been starting from the last couple of years and the advice and encouragement from everyone. And so I'm starting my own adventure, following my passions and my dreams. And so I'm really excited to do that. So yeah, so you'll now find me at mary@worldmaxp2.com and be watching my socials for more fun information on what all that is. So thanks. I love all this for y'all are so sweet. Thank you so much. Shannon, back to you, or I guess, yeah, Shannon, I'll hand it back to you.
Awesome. So yeah, very, very excited, Mary, to hear. Actually, I haven't even heard everything yet, but bits and pieces. And, you know, you and I have been working together on and off for the last few months. It's been an awesome experience working with you. So whoever gets to get you or whatever you're doing, I'm sure it's going to be very, very exciting. So I'm excited to see what that means. I am downloading Molly's presentation now because it didn't download. So give me just 2 seconds. And while I get this on so I can present. But while I'm doing that, I'm excited to introduce Molly and Liz. And I'm sure most of you know them from the channel and have known them over the years. Molly and Liz both had their start with another user group and kind of got stolen and used and repurposed. And it's been an awesome experience since then. So Molly and Liz, you guys want to do an intro of yourselves while I work on getting your slide deck up?
Sure, Liz, go ahead.
Perfect. Yes. Hello, everybody. I recognize most names here, but some I don't. So for those that I haven't met yet, I am Liz Hallen. Very excited to be here today. I just wanted to thank these fabulously strong leaders in our Microsoft community. You guys are all amazing, and I love you all. I have been with the Microsoft Dynamics space for over 20 years, not to date myself. But yes, definitely been in this space, which is why I recognize many of the names here. Started my career at Microsoft, and then Microsoft actually was able to jump into community in my last position there, and I've been with the community ever since. So super excited to be here today. Thank you all so much for having us and hosting us.
Awesome.
And my name is Molly Fuchel. I'm the president at Dynamics User Group. And Liz, I apologize if I totally missed this, but Liz is our vice president. So we work pretty hand in hand, side by side. So we're excited to be here. Both of us actually worked together at Dynamic Communities before coming to Dynamics User Group. And it's been an incredible journey, and one that we've really leveraged the community to help guide us and be our compass in what community really means and needs and how it grows and how to make the best of it. And so we welcome any questions or comments along the way. This is a very, as our wonderful host, thank you for having us again, Mary, Shannon, and Kristen. They've been explained to us that their normal format is pretty informal, so please interject with any questions or comments along the way. So Liz and I are a part of Dynamics User Group again, if you recognize this logo, or maybe you don't, and if not, welcome. Like I said, we are really trying to create a new place and space for community. If you want to go to the next slide, Shannon, I'll let Liz talk a little bit about our history just briefly, and then we will jump into specifically user groups and those local user groups and the benefits to them shortly thereafter. Go ahead, Liz.
Awesome. Thanks, Molly. Yeah, so even though you might not recognize our logo, Dynamics User Group, or even the name, even though it's very closely related to many other communities out there, we're sort of new, but we're sort of not. So our history started in 1995. We were just a discussion forum at that point in time, run by a Navision MVP. So very, very historical place back there. And so fast forward to today, you can see we've got 7 programs that we're offering today. Super excited and proud of how far we have come and the things that we're offering today. With that history, like I said, we had just the discussion forum, and just a couple of years ago, we started expanding our programs and really focusing on some other things. The first of those, which you may recognize us as the founders and the people behind the Dynamics Con event, we really wanted to offer you a place where we can have fun and do some education around the Dynamics and Power Platform products. And so Dynamics Con is really where we started to gain a ton of traction with the community and getting lots of community members. One of the big differences that you'll notice with our community versus some of the others that might be out there is we offer individual membership. So we're very much focused on the individual, helping you to promote yourself and to promote that journey of your career in this space. And so we're pretty excited about that, and the fact that we offer this all for free, the majority of it anyway, for free, thanks to our fantastic partners and our sponsors of our events and the other programs that we have. So maybe the next slide would give a little bit more in-depth detail. I don't want to spend a ton of time on this because I want to make this more informal and open discussion for everybody. And we'll talk about the meetups, I think, last. I think that's probably more of a more in-depth conversation of where we're going to spend most of our time. But we've been doing virtual events. Our next virtual event will be in a month from today. And so if you haven't registered, please do so. I won't spend a ton of time on it, but we do, yes, Kristen, Mary, and Shannon, I think, are all speaking at that upcoming event. So they can talk a little bit more about that as well. So there's a lot of great content happening there. It's a free event, virtual, so a global audience would love to see you there if you haven't registered already. We do have a live event as well coming this September, and I am going a little bit fast because I don't want to spend a ton of time in going in lots of details, but you can see the URLs here on the screen where you can get more details, and obviously we're here to answer any questions you have as well. But we wanted to make sure that we were offering in-person events as well. And so Dynamics Con Live also has come to our fold. We hosted our first live event last November in Anaheim. All of these fabulous MVP ladies were there as well. And we're hosting our second one here in September. We have not announced the dates, or we announced the dates. We have not announced the location yet, but it is coming very, very soon. We're targeting the week of September 12th for that event. And I did want to clarify one thing on this slide that's not accurate because we are constantly changing, is we do also have Dynamics GP and Power Platform content being added to this agenda. So super excited for that. So I know Mary's excited for that too. And so moving on to the next program we offer, we've got a really robust YouTube channel, almost 4,000 subscribers on there. You can actually go back, Shannon. There's a ton of information in this deck, but we'll just do the highlights for now. All of the content that we have presented at our prior 3 virtual events, can be found on YouTube. So if you're looking for a quick tip or a trick or just some really in-depth great content, you can go there. We also offer paid for in-depth training courses through our Doug Skill Up program. So if you're looking to get certified, wanting some more in-depth training for your career and learning one of the Microsoft Biz apps, please definitely check it out. We have Belinda on here, who is actually one of the trainers highlighted on Skill Up. So thank you, Belinda, for doing all that you do, and some really great content there for you as well. Then our forums, which we talked about, have been around since '95. We have hundreds of thousands of viewers and discussion forums that happen. And so there's a lot of activity and contribution that we would love to have all of your guys' participation in. As you can see here, we have almost 70,000 discussion topics, which is pretty incredible. And then our newest program is Doug Team Up. This is our annual partner membership program, which we just launched last week, and would be happy to tell you more about that. My email address is there. I'll be the one that is talking more about that program, but this is really a place for our partners to have visibility and have engagement with the community throughout the full year. And it is also allowing us to be sure that we can offer more free programs to the community in general. This is our second source of revenue. One of the things that we didn't talk too much about is that we are very much wanting to make sure that we're offering free membership for users. We feel very strongly that free user content is important. But obviously we have organizational expenses and things that we need to cover. So sponsors are our way of covering those expenses. So we're super grateful and thankful for everybody that has participated and provided support to us in the past. That was a very, very, very quick rundown of all of our programs. The rest of the deck here, we don't need to necessarily go into, but if you have specific questions, I know we'd be more than happy to answer them. So if we can just leave this up here, we can talk now probably a little bit more about Meetup. Molly, I think I'll just kick it back over to you so you can talk about that, which would be that first program on this slide.
Absolutely. Thanks.
Yeah.
You guys getting an echo from me? Good. All right. Perfect. All right. So yes, Liz went over a great recap of just a lot of the programs that we have to offer. 7 today, more coming, I'm sure. It's really all, again, based on what the community is looking for and needing. We do like to set ourselves apart just in the sense that we understand that every learner is unique and what appeals to them and how they want to learn and absorb content is different. And so we're really trying to provide a place for that to happen. One of those areas is our Doug Meetups, which are very closely or in line associated with a localized user group. So just to get a little feel for the audience, who has participated as an attendee at a local user group, chapter, might be called something else, just Microsoft group. Trying to get a feel for how many we've had as a participant. You can use the thumbs up or the awesome. Good to see. Great, great, great. I see our hosts are well versed. That's great. Awesome. Who has volunteered to lead a localized user group? Awesome. Way to go, Shannon. Great. All right. So we've got a mix definitely. So that'll help as we talk through everything. So our meetups, again, very closely associated with a Microsoft local user group or a Dynamics community chapter. These are your opportunity to really get together with like-minded common users of a similar product in your more localized area. So Shannon, if you go down a couple slides, we actually have a dedicated slide to Meetup. Probably the next 2 slides, it should show up. One more, I think. There we go. Perfect. So this is where our meetups are located today. Really, the essence behind this, and local user groups are certainly not new just to the Microsoft space. They're something that has been particularly in the technology environment for a long, long time. But even more today via the pandemic, they are becoming even more widely acceptable and popular across various industries because of the value that they bring. So this is a very unique opportunity, one, for those that can't attend every conference that's out there, and there's certainly a growing number of them, whether it's virtual, in person, or hybrid. So if that's just not in the cards for you, whether schedule, budgetarily, or just your workload, frankly, your personal and work life combined, it doesn't work out from that aspect. These are a wonderful opportunity for you to still get together, learn, network, and engage with, again, similar product users or sellers. So there's been a lot of magic that actually comes out of this localized user group concept. And again, we call them meetups because we at Doug, Dynamics User Group, we also call ourselves Doug, focus and concentrate using the Meetup platform. It's just so widely accepted. We've started using Meetups in 2016. Again, just as our owners were doing this as a volunteer effort, and then now it's really become quite common in a way to connect. We are using a Meetup today, just for example, because of its easeability and accessibility. So with that, the best way to describe it, just going into it, is it breaks down some of those barriers that you might have when you're looking at starting with a new product, interested in learning more about your product, you've been assigned a new job role, or large conferences, just frankly, again, for a lot of reasons, maybe are not the best fit for you. So this creates a smaller, condensed environment for you to have that opportunity where it's slightly, I would say, less formal. There's always usually an agenda to them just to help people understand what type of content they're going to absorb. But it's nice to make that connection, right? It's nice to have a community buddy. We certainly support and certainly are hoping to be big drivers of community connection and making community buddies, regardless of which way you choose to do it. We're here to provide one outlet for you, again, easy and accessible, but there are several others out there. And if it's not a meetup, we encourage you to join whatever local user group that works best for you. I'm going to go ahead and bring in our hosts a little bit because they've all had unique experiences with local user groups. I'm going to start with Shannon. And Shannon, I would love if you would tell them how you got involved with your local user group, where it was, and maybe just a little bit about where it sits today, if it's active, and share a little detail from your perspective. We'll start there.
Yeah, thanks, Molly. I've been involved in several local user groups. So obviously we have this user group that meets monthly. But as far as local user groups, I actually was in several of them back in Charlotte, and then also in Nashville pre-COVID. Obviously, post-COVID, it's been a little interesting to get people to meet up regularly without, restrictions. So most of my groups have been focused around Dynamics. Before I did Dynamics BC, I was in the Dynamics GP space and was very active in the GP community. And then, now have switched over to the BC and Teams communities. But yeah, I'd say the best part about the local user groups is just that you get that experience of like meeting people you would never meet, because every time I would go to one, there was people I've never seen before, or a new person, or someone who just like came with a question and they didn't, know what to do, or someone came and shared an experience and that kind of helped change, how I looked at something, or maybe it was a problem I was trying to solve. And then all of a sudden someone else shared what they were doing and that helped solve my problem. So it's just really good to like share and bounce ideas off of people who are doing very similar things, especially, when you're using a product or you're involved in a group of whatever kind of group it is, right? It's just sometimes good to vent and talk to people who do something similar, and then also be able to share your knowledge to help them, solve their problems. So Sean Dorward, actually, he was the one that got me really involved in local community groups. And I know he presents for Doug, and, he's done several presentations as well with Taylor this time. Yes. But Sean he was the one that encouraged me to speak the first time in a local user group, to speak the first time in a conference. And honestly, I was not enthused to do either of those things. And I kind of got
I like the
volunteered,
honesty.
and then I kind of was good at it. And so, you know how they say don't do your job very well because then you get more jobs. So I didn't know that starting off in my career. So, but no, it's been fun. And I think the best part is just community and building that community. It's good to get out there and meet people you've never met, you know, and just experience, you know, socialization. And if anything, you make some new friends, and you know, you walk away with a little bit more knowledge. So yeah, it's been a good experience. I actually just emailed you and Liz because I would love to start a user group in Nashville. We don't really have anything going on here in Nashville for Dynamics, so I think that would be awesome to start something up here. So yeah.
Thank you
Awesome.
for volunteering. I won't forget it.
Sure.
Oh,
I know.
fantastic. Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you. Well, that actually was it's like I paid you to say that, because that's going to lead into my next question for one of our other hosts, which is Kristen. So again, these localized user groups or DUG meetups are completely volunteer led. There are, of course, no cost to an attendee or the leader. We take care of all the logistics and the facilities and the funding of them. But I'd like to ask Kristen specifically about how she got involved as a leader. And Kristen, what's that like? Can you share a little bit of that history and just maybe share some of the pros and cons even of being a volunteer leader and things that you've seen from that perspective?
Yeah, for sure. Gosh, you're gonna make me go back, like way back. It must be like 10 years already. I was actually a little younger, less gray hair. But living in Minnesota, I got involved with a GP, Dynamics GP user group through GPUG. And they used to have regional meetings at the Microsoft headquarters up in North Dakota and Fargo. And happened to go to one of those, and the infamous Bob McAdam was there. And I got voluntold to speak at Summit, and I think it was Amplify at the time, I think is what they called it. But so I got voluntold, and I think for me, you know, it was more about networking at that point and being able to have a group of people that I could go to with questions and try and brainstorm answers and different things like that. So that's really why I got involved. But it snowballed into something bigger. So just imagine like taking a snowball and rolling it and making this huge snowman, right? Like it just snowballed into this huge thing that I couldn't even imagine at the time, because I was an end user at the time. And I think getting involved with the community, getting involved with a chapter leader just helped my career specifically, because it helped me kind of come out of my shell and be a little bit more independent and maybe a little bit more daring to speak my mind and different things like that. But I do feel like being a leader, you're just always learning, you're always helping people, always meeting people. Molly, you mentioned, you know, the word community buddy. Like, how many community buddies do we have? You guys, come on. Like, this is just like, it's amazing that you can go to a conference and you can know more than one person because they're part of a user group that you're part of. You know, and you tag along and you hang with each other, and then you meet other people that they've met, and this group just grows and grows. And next thing you know, you may know like 20 to 50, maybe 100 people at that conference just by being part of a community. So I think it's really important as we continue on. And you know, we've seen the lack of in-person events the last 2 years, which has obviously kind of hit the in-person events, because I know now I'm in Denver and the Denver user group is like non-existent. I'm not as brave as Shannon to say verbally right now that I'm ready to take it on, but Molly's gonna put me down for that. But I think the community is growing virtually, and here's what I mean by that. Molly's talking a lot about meetups, and you know, we have this monthly meetup, and Doug has monthly meetups and different things like that. But there's also other meetups within the community. The biggest one that I can think of off the top of my head is the BC Beer. So if you're within the Business Central community, Christoph from Europe has an online meetup out there. I think they meet almost at least once a month, but more frequently than that. And the next one is actually coming up this Friday. But he has, let me look here. He's got over 800 members.
Yes.
I mean, he's just like you. He's just like us. Like, he's a developer, and he's got over 800 people as a member of that group. It's just amazing.
I love it. Thanks, Kristen. On the note of virtual, so that's a great segue to our next conversation. As Kristen said, we are getting more connected virtually, and a lot of our meetups, actually a majority of our meetups today, meet virtually. Some have the intention and the great desire, can't wait for it to meet back in person, but some actually will intend to stay virtual. And Liz, maybe you just want to talk about the opportunity that you've seen a little bit with virtual based on where you are.
I would love to. Yes. So one of the things I didn't tell you about when we were doing our introductions is I live in North Dakota, and I live in a very, very remote area of North Dakota, to the point where my nearest Walmart is 70 miles. And so I know it's horrific. Right? Amazon Prime is my best friend, I tell you what. But I don't have an opportunity for a local meetup. And so the pandemic, although a lot of negative and cons have come out of this, I actually have found a couple of pros that have come out of the pandemic, in the fact that we have been meeting more virtually. I mean, look at this Teams meeting. Like, we never used to have 6 people we could see across the screen at the same time. That's a new feature. Do you remember when it used to just be one at a time? Like, technology has changed so much as a result of this pandemic. I have met so many people virtually. The Dynamics Con virtual event had allowed me to meet Shannon and Kristen and Mary ahead of time. And then when we were in person together in Anaheim last November, it was like I had instantaneous friends while I was there, and I had people I could go hang out with and share an alcoholic beverage with. Like, it was just that fun, instant connection, instead of, previously when you'd go to an in-person, it sometimes can be intimidating when you're going someplace for the first time, especially if you're going by yourself and you don't really know people very well. I really feel like this virtual environment has enabled that and allowed that to happen. So I'm glad to hear that some of our meetups are going to continue in a virtual way, because I feel like there's that, and then there's also some in-person, larger conferences and get-togethers that people will still get to see each other face to face. And I mean, how much fun was it to be able to hug everybody when we were in Anaheim? It was fantastic.
Hey, Liz, while you were talking, it reminded me of a memory that just was not that long ago. Mary, Shannon, and I were over Directions EMEA, and we had met a ton of these folks virtually, right? And then to meet them in person, we were sitting in the hotel, the lobby, Shannon and I, and we were like, oh my gosh, that's AJ, that's Waldo. Or like, we went to the convention center, and then Stefan came up to us and he's like, yay tall. So it was awesome, because we were like, we know you. We were able to just go up to them and just start talking and kind of laugh about, hey, you're taller or shorter than I thought you were going to be, and different things like that. So I think it is just a good icebreaker, and I will say that I believe it was the Dynamics Con live event last year. There was a LinkedIn chat that was started, and that was awesome, because it allowed all the attendees to get in there and kind of talk and chat virtually first before they actually met in person. So even though it was a chat and it wasn't like a live video like this, I think it still had a lot of impact just in that networking sense of getting people comfortable having that icebreaker.
Yes.
Absolutely. Thanks, Kristen. Well, I have a question for Mary, but I'm going to hold it for a minute and just see, does anyone have any questions just based on some of the feedback that our wonderful hosts have shared? We've done just a high level of the Doug specific meetups and what that means. But I'd love to see if anyone wants to come on camera or use their microphone to ask a question about the meetups. All right. No takers. All right. Hal made a good comment in the chat. He did say the virtual localized groups or meetups are definitely cheaper to attend. If you are traveling away, I've seen people in my past, particularly when I was working with dynamic communities chapters, who would travel 3 hours one way for a local user group. That would happen either on a quarterly basis or even a monthly basis. So certainly it's an investment not only in time, but actual investment to get there financially. So the virtual meetups, I agree, sometimes they're a really good fit for a lot of people. Somebody like Liz, like she was just sharing her experience. So Mary, I would love it if you would just share, because you are newer to this type of localized user group involvement with a greater community effort behind it. I'd love to hear your thoughts on just what that's been like for you, because I think you got involved just as the pandemic was kind of getting underway, but please correct me if I'm wrong.
No, that's really correct. So, kind of I first stumbled into, well, I first went to forums, right? I was new to tech consulting. I needed help, right? So forums and user groups are a great place for me to go. And so in that, it just kept growing. It was just like first the little forums, and they were really helpful, and they weren't even necessarily like user group specific. It was like the ones on like Microsoft sites, but then I kept Googling and finding more forums and more, ones, and then different things would come up. And so it was really, really helpful for me in two very specific areas. One, first and foremost, just the knowledge, right? Like getting the functional, components, understanding, learning. And what's beneficial about that is it's like I always say, like work smarter, not harder. And so what is the quickest way to consume material, right? Like, am I going to go Google for hours and read through everything if I can go to like a specific area and really just like concentrate like that search, right? So, I always say like my superpower is I have no shame and I'll ask all the questions. because it's just about, but I learn a lot quicker, right? And so I can get through a lot more because I'm not spending a lot of time doing that. So that's one really important thing. And then the other thing that was really, really helpful is just the personal aspect. From a work perspective, right? Because sometimes like work's really hard, and where I live in South Carolina. Now I thought I lived in the sticks, but I don't have to go 70 miles.
70. Yes, that is 70.
I think it's like 12, and I refuse to go that far. Like I don't go outside of like a mile square radius in my house. But anyways, the point of that being is like it's really hard sometimes for other people to be able to relate, right? Like I can go home and I can like tell my husband, I can tell my friends, right, about like my problem or the issue, and they're like, like blank face, right? So the community is really, really great to be able to, not just learn, but just kind of like share and empathize, right, with like other people that can help you. Like when you're having those bad days and you need somebody to like pick you up and be like, no, it's just a posting group away, right? Like those quick saves, and to help you feel really good when you're having down, but to also celebrate like your good stuff too. So I think that was really helpful for me in the beginning of my career. And I think that really since then, like the rest of my career to this point, and like evolution, even to the point now where I have my, I have my own company. That it's really just an evolution of the community groups, and just kind of having like this network of people where you know that you're not scared, right? Because literally, I was talking to somebody, they're like, well, do you know everything in Business Central? And I was like, heck no, I don't know everything in Business Central. Like, I don't know anyone that does. And he was like, well, if you're just alone, like, what do you do if you don't know everything? And I was like, I've got a network of people around the world, like the best people around the world. Like I don't have to worry about that, right? And that all comes 100% from communities and working with them. So that is kind of, my experience, my love and my passion, and even my best friends, right? Like literally to this day, the people that, whether it be work or anything else, like they're there. So it's my little
Great
love spiel.
testimonial.
Valentine's Day. Yeah, Valentine's Day was yesterday, but this is my love, devotion to the community. So
And again, that was great, Mary. Thank you for sharing that. It is one way, right? It's one way to get involved with community. We started this talking about our variety of ways to get involved, but this definitely seems to create some type of spark that you get so enriched with, and it's something that you just want to keep coming back to. It is far less intimidating, I think, to a lot of people to be in these types of environments where they're intentionally a little bit looser, right? They want people to be networking. There's always time for that. A lot of groups get together for a cocktail afterwards just to keep the conversation going. And that's when that real community engagement and camaraderie happens, right? You keep building relationships with these people where you do again have that commonality of a product usage, but then you really discover, hey, I like you. This is cool. I can hang with you. So then when you see each other at a larger conference, it's a big reunion. So I think that's great, Mary. And one thing I think is interesting to note, and this is going to go into one wonderful question in the chat, is women to men ratio in some of these localized user group meetings. So I will tell you, getting the opportunity to work really closely with local user groups for a really long time, I have watched that ratio change, where I used to walk into a room and be one of two females, and I was there really as a representative of the community, and there would be hardly any females. And so it's really exciting to hear from females only so far on this call, and I welcome anyone else to chime in, of course, but that they found a connection in that space, and we are, as women, building that as part of the normalcy of these localized user group meetings, is having more of a women presence and making it a more approachable environment if that's what you're looking for. Some people it doesn't make any difference, but for some people it does. And so I just want to point out that getting involved, whether it's just coming as an attendee, even if it's once or twice a year, that's creating a familiarness for yourself, for that group, and it's just going to help us as women grow more in this community. Liz, do you want to share a quick stat with them on our percentage that we had with we like to look at our Google Analytics a lot, and I think this is going to roll into the question in the chat, going back to it, of this female-run organization. But Liz, do you want to share what we've seen on our Dynamics Con event, Google Analytics for female versus male?
Yes, I will. And to your point, Molly, I was a little bit blown away when we looked at this number the other day, because yes, I have been in this space, like I said, for over 20 years, and I had the same experiences. I'm sure many of you have as well, that you were the only female in the room. It was predominantly male, which there's nothing wrong with that. That's just how it was. And I've seen it gradually change over time, the percentage of the male to female ratio. The Dynamics Con representation, if I remember the stat correctly now, is 37% of our community now, which
Yes.
is amazing. I think 20 years ago, it was probably 7 maybe percent. If I had to put a number on, I'm totally guessing and going from my gut, but that's what it felt like.
And that's of course one of our many websites that we reference, but it's definitely one where I would say the largest majority of our community participates today is in our virtual event. So it's a good marker for us. 37%, I think, from what I read, and I need to get a little sharper on the data, because this is something that we've been as a team looking at more thoroughly, but I think it ranges from 20 to 25% at best for any type of technology, large gathering or conference. And so, and that's even stats of today, right? That's, she referenced stats that I think are very honest for 10, 20 years ago, which were much, much less. And so I think that's important to note, and kind of rolling into the question of, I think, paraphrasing the question, what's it like? Honestly, It rocks, ladies. It rocks to say that we are a women-led organization at Dynamics User Group. I think we are gaining a lot of interest. I think that we are breaking a lot of barriers. We make no apologies for what we do in this movement forward. We're very vocal about it. We're very honest about it. It's not just something you do and you say, oh, it just happened. No, we work really hard at it, and we look to a lot of the women on this call to help us get there. Actually, I'm going to change that statement and say, because of a lot of the women on this call, we are making that more balanced in a gender ratio. And of course, want to be sensitive to all types of gender identifications, of course. But if we're looking at that female to male ratio, these women on this call are a huge part of helping us make a space and a voice for women. And that is a huge goal and momentum behind Dynamics User Group, behind every single one of our programs, behind Meetups, behind more. Somebody on this call shared with me that, Belinda, may I share a little something that you shared with me in email?
Yes.
Belinda is one of our loved subcommittee and committee members for the programming committee of Dynamics Con Live coming up in September. And she is helping us come up with the best content for the Power Platform and Dynamics GP track. And her team have worked so hard. And Belinda, did you want to share with them what you told me about the Power Platform track?
And I put it in the chat just now, and it's in no part to Mary Thompson and Mariano Gomez, that 4 of the 6 Power Platform sessions at Dynamics Con Live will be woman-led. And I think that is so stinking awesome that 2/3 are going to be women-led. So kudos, Mary is one of them, but kudos.
Yes.
And I'm super excited about that too. I will chime in for that for a second. The fact that it's the Power Platform, right? Not to discount any other, platform by any means, but I just think with the Power Platform, where I'm going with that is there's more technical, where in some of the other areas it's more functional. And I know just from me, like on my career, like every Dynamics Con, I'm so proud of myself sometimes, because I've seen evolution and a growth in my content, right? And so as I go, and not taking anything away from functional, I probably am more technical because there's a lot of areas from the functional side that I'm really weak at, right? But I just know, long story short, to see more women writing that technical area, because I think if you were to really break down the numbers as well, like in tech, and look at functional versus like technical, again, I just think it's exciting. So
you are so right,
platform, and I can't shut up.
you are so right. It's my love too, and I'm not even one of the presenters, right? So it's not like Mary and I stack the deck. And I'm not for the Power Platform anyhow. I am doing Power Platform, but with in the other tracks. Yeah, I mean, it is the more technical of the products as a whole. I'm not that there's serious tech in the others. Do not misquote me on that. But as a whole, these are typically technical people and no functional people. So yeah, that is so exciting, because I mean, I remember at one event at Boston, it was a Power BI SQL Saturday, and it's so sad, but there was a line in the ladies' room and we applauded, and there were only 2 stalls, and every woman there happened to be a Power BI MVP, but still we had to stand in line. And so that was a sad celebration. This one is so much better.
I love that. Our conferences have a long line at the ladies' room, and they will continue to do so. I love it. I would love to just open up any other questions. It can be on this topic, on the greater topic. Would welcome anyone to come off their mic and just share a little bit on the women specific part in our industry, or just meetups or Doug or community as a whole.
I guess I would like to ask a question to the people, you know what I mean, to our chat members as we're coming up on the next virtual Dynamics Con. I guess I'd be curious to know, do you guys attend any of like the networking events, or is it just the socials, or what I mean, not socials, just the sessions, the other S word, right? So, kind of what is your main focus at Dynamics Con? Is there anything that like maybe even as an attendee that you're questioning, or that, you know what I mean? Is there anything that we can, you know what I mean, guidance or something that we can provide there? That would be my question.
Great question.
Mary, I think for me, it's pretty hard being in sessions all day long virtually and then being back on the computer at night. But I find that the in-person conferences are much easier to attend the events at night because there's alcohol and no kids.
I love the honesty.
So I'm just being honest. If I'm going to go
No.
home and I'm going to have kids and a computer screen, it's not as fun as like being in person and having alcohol and grown-ups. So that's just my thought.
And that's a good idea. So I mean, I'm sure anyone can touch on that, but I'll just give my 2 cents on that, because I don't think that you're alone in that, right? Like, as we're in like 2 years now, sometimes like all day virtual events is a lot, you know what I mean? And it's just, we get meeting fatigue and all this stuff. So what I would say to that is, take a look at the sessions ahead of time. They're out there. The agendas are out there. Maybe like there's 1 or 2 that you can't, live without, and it lines up easy, and it's in like your lunch hour or something like that. Maybe like, in some of them this time, they're like 30 minutes long instead of an hour long as well. So, you can kind of see, instead of planning to be there like all day, every day, just kind of cherry pick, certain ones. Also, I would definitely recommend, again, like I was saying, like there's always some networking events. I met Kristen and Shannon and everyone, most memorably Kristen at the Women in Tech, meetup event at the virtual event. And so what I'm getting at is just that interaction. Yeah, that networking, right? So, and the networking ones are like in the evening as well too, like kind of after, where you don't have to pay attention to your emails quite as much, because it's at like that 4 o'clock, I think, Eastern Standard Time, So maybe if you can't spend it all day, like just come in and network for a little bit. And then that YouTube channel that's super amazing and has all the, recorded sessions, maybe you can, catch that up in a few weeks or something like that. But that would be my suggestion to anyone else that maybe can't spend all day watching virtual event as well.
She's talking about our virtual event, March 15th through the 17th. We'll have a Women in Tech breakout room where you can get off of the just chat text only and do more of this, where you have video and direct interaction with each other. So we'll have a dedicated Women in Tech networking breakout room that'll be open. So, and some of these ladies will maybe volunteer to be hosts again, like Kristen.
I was looking back, because when I did the virtual event, Molly, one of the questions that I asked the group was like, where do you see yourself in a couple of years for growth? And I wrote it down for everybody.
Oh, I love that.
So I'm looking here, I'm like, okay, where's Mary in this? I don't have Mary's on here, but I have 4 other women's on here, and I should follow up with them and see if they've actually done what they were hoping to do over the last year.
I love that. Great idea. Yeah. Anything else? I know we're at the top of our time, or possibly right or over it. So any other questions for Liz and I before we hand it on back to our hosts?
I did see one in the chat, Molly, from Anya, who was just basically asking, how do we position Doug as being different and standing out? You want to take that one?
Yeah, Anya, step 1 to your first question, women led. But otherwise, free membership is a big differentiator for Dynamics User Group, only having 2 of the 7 programs with an actual fee associated with it. And then honestly, I hope that this message is getting across to all of you and to the greater community that we're here to listen. Part of our 3-year plan has a lot of adaptive no answers yet sections to it, which means we're here to adapt to how content is being absorbed. And when we do plans for 3 years out, it's not us that should be telling you how to learn and absorb content. It's you as the community telling us how you want to learn it. And so we really try to be at that open ear and responsive. And I hope for those that have been with us on this journey since we started our first Dynamics Con in September of 2020, that you felt like your voice has been heard, that you've seen changes that you've suggested be implemented, or I followed up with you and told you why I couldn't. And a lot of it's budgetarily related, because that's just truthfully where we are in our infancy as a company and as we grow. And yeah, so I hope that gives some differences in how we hope to stick out. And I also want to just be very clear that Liz and I very much take a stance that we understand there are a lot of ways to participate in community, and there are different community-centric organizations, and we support whatever you feel is a best fit for you. That might not be Doug. We would love it if it is, but it might not be, and we understand that. But to us, it matters the most that you are getting involved, whether it's a meetup, whether it's a virtual event, an in-person event, or something else. What matters the most is that you're participating and you're doing something to help yourself, and you're helping others too, usually. So that is our stance as leaders, and we hope that Doug is where you find a good home.
It's my home, so I'll just go.
Molly and Liz, that was fantastic. Thank you both so much for sharing and letting us, learn a little bit about what you're doing with the community and how we can get involved. And I know all three of us have been very actively, participating, and we're very excited to see, where Doug is going to go in the future years, and excited to have two girls leading the charge. So very excited, and thank you both very much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you for hosting us. This has
Thanks.
been fantastic.
Thank you,
I
ladies.
loved being surrounded by strong women. It's elevating for me. So thank you.
Absolutely. And thanks everybody for attending. Have a great afternoon and a great weekend.
Bye-bye.
Yes.